So the wind at Kittansett is always a factor, and we see a couple of different winds throughout the season. So for example, in the summer months, the wind is typically from the southwest, which makes the first few holes play a little bit easier than they normally would. The players fear the wind in the spring and fall, which comes out of the northeast. That makes the first 6 holes feel like every hole is, if not directly into the wind, then into a pretty stiff cross breeze. And again, coming back to our third hole, when the wind is gusting 25, 30 miles an hour, a player really has to be decisive with the line they choose for their shot.
Uh, 195, but still playing like 210 against the wind. Just got to favor the right side.
Right side.
So the first hole at Kittansett, they like to say, Ross's philosophy was always that the first hole would be like a gentle handshake welcoming a player to what they might encounter. Well, Flynn's version at Kittansett is more of what I would joke as a hostile carjacking. It is one of the most difficult holes of the golf course, long par 4, and again, based on the wind conditions, a lot of the times an average player might not be able to even get to the green in 2 shots. So it really sets the tone that you're in for a challenging day.
Ooh. I'm sure you guys will get on the golf course, you'll see the course has been hit with 4 major hurricanes over its 101-year history. We had a near scare coming up a couple weeks ago, so I always, heart skips a beat a little bit when that stuff starts to news-wise come up the coast. We've been fortunate, but it's only a matter of time before we do kind of get a significant storm that's going to impact the golf course.
So not a bad spot to walk, huh?
This is, yeah, pretty good. This is one of my best views. 16's the best view I find, but this isn't bad.
It's a nice view from the office here.
Yeah, it is a good office, so I can't complain.
The third hole at Kittansett is arguably one of the most photographed holes in all of New England golf. It's just spectacular. So much depends on the wind, the tide. Obviously, when the tide is in, the intimidation factor of that shot just goes through the roof. I mean, you have this island green that is just surrounded by sand. And for anyone that's played the course before, they know how challenging it is if you miss the green, because the sand around the green is not your typical greenside bunker sand. It's really a mixture of coarse beach sand. So if you're in that, your objective goes from just getting it on the green.
Got a nice little shell pebble mix here, where everywhere else on the golf course is more traditional golf sand. This is almost like moon sand. Your club goes right underneath of it, so you gotta really make sure you're hitting down on it on these shots on the third hole here at Kittansett.
Big birdie putt here.
Imagine birdie in this hole.
Yeah. Ooh. Our caddy Scott says you're gonna get Cape weather when you're by the water, and when you're inland, you're gonna get Boston weather. So, I mean, it was a little warmer on the inside, but the breeze was circulating all day. So we were fighting the wind all day. Obviously, as we got closer to the water holes, we had to be, a little more strategic with some of our tee shots, because the wind was really whipping when you get close to those water holes.
So one thing I noticed with this course, it's got a great mix of these shorter par 4s, dog legs, moving right, a couple of them. And I'm thinking about this, and I lean over to Cam and I said, my initial impression is this has got to be a great course for match play. And he said, it absolutely is. Some of the events that they hold there, they're able to move those tee boxes in spots where if the match is tight, you got a real decision to be made. And you hear our caddy Scott was talking about it a lot too, and a lot of the spots where it gets narrower and tighter towards the green. And you could risk it, go for the glory, try to drive it, at some of these shorter par 4s, or you could play the smart route. But I love that. When I see that mix, and then some of those longer par 3s too, I just think great match play course, and that's exactly what the Kittansett Club is.
Kittansett is really so proud of their history in terms of giving back to the game, and I think things really started off with the 1953 Walker Cup, where there's some great photography around the club, obviously some great names in the game that competed there: Charlie Coe, Ken Venturi, Gene Littler, and the club takes a lot of pride in that history. So, great story from that. One of the GB&I players was over and asked one of the members, is it always this windy here at Kittansett? And the member laughed and said, no, normally it's more windy. So it really set the tone for a great event, and the club's really proud of that event.
So we come up to the 11th hole, par 3, and of course, we look at each other and we're like, this is a par 3? Like, question, like, it looks like a par 4, that pin looks so far away. And Cam, it was funny, he comes up to us and he goes, well, welcome to the hardest par 3 in Massachusetts, boys. This thing is something. I mean, not only is its incredible length, but also the green is super challenging. It's got almost two different tiers there, and depending on where that pin is, you're gonna bring some bunkering in. But it's an intimidating tee shot, that's for sure, and you're gonna hit a long club here. But one interesting fact was that just the day prior to us being there, Cam was telling us one of the younger golfers was out there from the back tees. Now get this, it played 270 and he made a hole-in-one. Hopefully some of those hole-in-one vibes will rub off on us today when we take this tee shot.
We have sea level rise challenges that we're dealing with right now, so the club's going through a long range plan right now to combat sea level rise. So we're seeing a little bit of it, but whether you're a believer or not in sea level rise, I'm a believer in it. I see it on the golf course. This is my 18th season here. I can see some changes. I can see areas where we're getting more salt water closer to the golf course. We see some trees starting to die back. So we have that to deal with, and then as you can see, we're right at sea level, so tidal influence. So when we get big rain events, we have to deal with the tide. If it's a high tide, then the water is not going to flow off the golf course. So we have to wait through a full tide cycle sometimes to drain the golf course fully out. So we've had an extremely wet year this year. The course has held up very well, but that's another thing that we're working on long range, is a long range master plan for drainage, which will coincide with sea level rise and drainage. So I'd say those would be the two major challenges that we're facing right now at the golf course.
Finally made one. Over 8 feet.
You get to the 14th tee, which is a little bit of a downhill par 3, and I describe this kind of like a sleeping lion, is that a player comes out of the parkland style of the golf course and once again is treated at great views of Buzzard's Bay in the distance. And the hole actually looks pretty benign. There's a little bit of fescue around, but you really can't see what danger is lurking. You've got a steep bunker over the green, and then of course you have the Walker Cup bunker, which is invisible, short left of the green, that has a deep staircase in that is probably my closest reminder what the 10th bunker at Pine Valley would be like.
Get in.
Oh!
So is this the signature hole, or is the third the signature hole? Most members like...
You got a few of them here.
Yeah, so members like this is the signature hole. "50 yards, it dips down, comes back up, so those bunkers are actually 50 yards in front of the green.
Okay.
So a safe shot, you want to hit like 100, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just gonna wedge it out.
Right.
Like a 52-degree wedge.
Yeah, 110, that's fine.
Oh, what?
Yeah, that hole-
Wow, that grabbed.
Grabbed it so
Look
hard.
at that. Woo.
Yeah, look at that stuff.
Woo.
Well, you're in the fairway now.
It's still out.
Still out. Let's go.
Swing easy when it's breezy.
That's it, man. Kittansett
Easy
way.
when it's breezy.
So the bunkering at Kittansett around the greens is very well protected. That was part of Gil Hans's renovation restoration in 2021, 2022 in preparation for the Senior Am, doing all the bunkers over again. So, and I think the best testament that we hear is that they're meant to look old, they're meant to look like they've been here all along, and they're very rustic, but they are very penalizing. They're deep, they're difficult bunkers to play out of.
So we're coming up the 18th and the sun is just setting. You feel the breeze coming in from Buzzard's Bay. And it's just one of those ones where you just gotta think, how lucky am I? You know, we had an incredible day out here, and it may be, honestly, I know this is saying a lot because we've played a lot of great places, we've traveled a lot of places, but I'm maybe possibly convinced to put this in my top 5 experiences of all time. It's just everything today happened. The weather was perfect, the company was incredible, the golf course was amazing. This was one that we're certainly not gonna forget.